The night is quiet in a way that makes you notice every small sound. The hum of the refrigerator in the kitchen. The distant murmur of traffic 3 stories below. The soft clink of glass against hardwood when one of us shifts position on the floor. It's the kind of silence that feels too big, too expectant, like it's waiting for something to fill it. I'm sitting with my back against the couch, legs stretched out in front of me, feeling the worn fabric press against my shoulder blades through my thin t-shirt. The apartment is dim, lit only by the lamp in the corner that casts everything in warm amber tones. Damien is beside me, close enough that our knees almost touch when we move. Between us sits a bottle of beer, half empty and forgotten, condensation pooling around its base on the floor. We've been laughing for the past hour about nothing at all, the kind of laughter that comes easy when it's late and you're tired and the world feels smaller than it did in daylight. The kind that bubbles up from some place deeper than humor, fed by the strange intimacy of being alone together when everyone else is asleep. But now the laughter has faded, and I can feel the weight of the quiet settling around us like dust. I tilt my head back against the couch cushions and close my eyes, feeling suddenly aware of everything. The warmth radiating from Damien's body where his shoulder brushes against mine. The way my pulse has quickened without reason. The strange electricity in the air that I can't quite name, but can't ignore either. We've been playing this game for the last 30 minutes. Secrets. Trading them back and forth like currency, each one a little more valuable than the last. It started innocent enough. Embarrassing childhood stories. Things we'd never told anyone else. The kind of confessions that make you laugh and cringe at the same time. But somewhere along the way, the tone shifted. The secrets grew heavier, more real. The space between us seemed to shrink with each admission, as if every truth shared pulled us closer together by some invisible thread. My secret, I told him earlier, is that I'm afraid of being truly known. Afraid that if someone really saw me, all of me, they'd find something lacking. Something not worth staying for. He didn't laugh at that. He went very still beside me. And when I looked at him, his expression had changed. Softer somehow. More intent. Like he was seeing something in me that I hadn't meant to show. Now I can feel him watching me in the dim light, though my eyes are still closed. There's something different in the air between us, something charged and fragile at the same time. Like we're balanced on the edge of something we can't take back. I know Damien well enough to recognize the signs. The way he goes quiet when he's thinking too hard about something. The way his breathing changes when he's making a decision he's not sure about. The way the energy around him shifts from his usual restless movement to a kind of focused stillness that makes the hair on my arm stand up. He's been coming over more often lately, always with some excuse. Company, he says, or boredom, or he was in the neighborhood. But I've started to suspect there's something else underneath it, something he hasn't said, something neither of us has been willing to name. Tonight feels different, though, heavier with possibility. Like whatever has been building between us is finally pressing against the surface, demanding to be acknowledged. I open my eyes and find him looking at me, his face closer than I expected, close enough that I can see the gold flecks in his brown eyes, the way the lamplight catches on the stubble along his jaw, close enough that when he speaks, his voice seems to come from everywhere at once. My turn, he says, his voice lower than it was before, quieter, like he's telling me something meant only for my ears. I wait, feeling my heart do something strange and fluttering in my chest. The apartment feels even smaller now, like the walls have moved in while I wasn't paying attention. Like there's nothing in the world except this room, this moment, this space between us that seems to hum with unspoken things. He leans closer, and I feel my breath catch. Not toward my face, but toward the side of my neck, his mouth so near that I can feel the warmth of his breath against my skin. Every nerve ending in my body suddenly comes alive, hyper-aware of his proximity, of the way the air seems to shimmer between us. When he speaks, his voice is barely more than a whisper, the words brushing against my neck like a secret too dangerous to say out loud. My secret, he says, and I can feel his lips almost touching my skin. I think about you more than I should. The words hit me like a physical thing, sinking into me with the weight of fire. My entire body goes still, frozen in place by the magnitude of what he's just confessed. This isn't the game anymore. This isn't harmless trading of embarrassing stories or childhood fears. This is real. This is dangerous. This changes everything. I can feel my pulse hammering in my throat, can feel the heat spreading outward from where his breath touched my neck. The silence that follows his words is different from the comfortable quiet we shared before. This silence is electric, charged with the weight of a truth that can't be taken back. He doesn't move away. He stays there, close enough that I can feel the tension radiating from his body, can sense the vulnerability in the way he's holding himself perfectly still. Like he's afraid that any movement might shatter whatever delicate thing has just been born between us. I want to turn toward him, want to look at his face, but I can't seem to make my body obey. I'm caught in this moment, suspended between the before and the after, knowing that whatever I do next will determine the shape of everything that follows. The apartment feels smaller than ever, the amber light casting everything in soft focus except for this moment, this confession, this truth that hangs in the air between us like something alive and breathing. The game of secrets is over. What comes next is something else entirely. I've always been the friend people tell things to. The one they call when they need to make sense of something complicated or when they've made a mistake they can't quite forgive themselves for. There's something about me, they say, something safe and unassuming that makes confession feel easier. I listen without judgment, offer advice without agenda, and somehow never seem to carry the weight of their secrets in a way that shows. It's a role I've grown comfortable with over the years. The steady one, the dependable one, the friend who never rocks the boat or makes waves or asks for more than what's freely given. I tell myself it's because I understand the value of being needed, but sometimes in the quiet hours like this one, I wonder if it's really because I'm afraid of being the one who needs. My apartment reflects this careful orderliness of my life. Books stacked in neat piles on every available surface, their spines worn from repeated readings. Papers scattered across the coffee table, half-finished projects that I return to when inspiration strikes. A single coffee mug in the sink, evidence of mornings spent alone with my thoughts. Everything has its place, and that place rarely includes room for someone else's permanent presence. The couch behind me still holds the indentation from where I sat reading earlier, before Damien arrived with that restless energy that seems to follow him everywhere. The throw blanket is folded precisely at one end, though I know by morning it will be tangled and forgotten on the floor. These small disruptions are becoming more frequent, more familiar, markers of time spent in company I've grown to crave more than I'm comfortable admitting. Damien is nothing like me. Where I am careful, he is impulsive. Where I consider every word before speaking, he lets thoughts tumble out with a kind of raw honesty that both terrifies and fascinates me. He fills rooms with his presence, commands attention without trying, carries himself with the kind of confidence I've never quite managed to cultivate. But underneath all that noise and movement, I've started to notice something else. The way his hands fidget when he's nervous. The way his voice goes quieter when he's saying something that matters. The way he looks at me sometimes, like he's trying to solve a puzzle he can't quite figure out. He's been coming over more often in the past few weeks. Always with an excuse, always casual about it. But I've started to recognize the pattern. Thursday evenings when his other friends are busy. Sunday afternoons when the weekend feels too long and empty. Late nights like this one when the city settles into sleep and we're left with too much time to think. Tonight felt ordinary when he first knocked on the door. The familiar ritual of letting him in, offering something to drink, settling into the comfortable rhythm of conversation that comes easy between us. But there was something different in his energy, something more focused than his usual scattered restlessness. The beer was his suggestion, though neither of us has drunk much. It sits between us now, like a prop in a play we're both performing, something to do with our hands while we navigate whatever this is becoming. The game started as a way to fill the silence that had begun to feel too heavy, too loaded with things neither of us seemed willing to say directly. His idea, naturally. Secrets, he said, grinning in that way that usually means trouble. The harmless kind, or so I thought. But as we traded stories back and forth, each admission building on the last, I began to recognize something deliberate in the way he was steering the conversation. Not toward the silly embarrassments or childhood fears we started with, but toward something deeper, something that felt like excavation, like he was digging toward a truth he wasn't sure how to reach directly. When I confessed my fear of being truly known, I hadn't planned to say something so revealing. The words just came, pulled out of me by the warmth of the lamplight and the safety of his attention and the strange intimacy of sitting so close on the floor. I expected him to laugh it off, to match it with something equally vulnerable but lighter in tone. Instead, he went very still. His entire body seemed to shift into a different kind of awareness, like he was suddenly paying attention to something he'd been missing. The look he gave me then was unlike anything I'd seen from him before. Softer, yes, but also more intense. Like he was seeing past all the careful walls I'd built around myself and recognizing something familiar on the other side. The air between us changed after that, became charged with possibility, thick with unspoken acknowledgement. Every small movement felt magnified. Every breath seemed louder than it should. The space on the floor that had felt comfortable and casual suddenly seemed intimate in a way that made my pulse quicken. I can still feel the weight of that look, the way it seemed to strip away all pretense and leave me feeling exposed in a way that should have been frightening, but somehow wasn't. Instead, it felt like relief, like finally being seen by someone who wasn't going to turn away for what they found. The game continued after that, but the rules had changed. We were no longer trading harmless confessions, but circling around something much more dangerous. Something that felt inevitable and terrifying and necessary all at once. And now his confession hangs in the air between us, those whispered words still echoing against my skin. I think about you more than I should. Simple words that have turned everything I thought I understood about our friendship inside out. The silence stretches on, heavy with implication. I can feel him waiting beside me, can sense his vulnerability in the careful way he's holding himself still. This moment feels balanced on a knife's edge, poised between revelation and retreat, between the safety of what we've always been and the unknown territory of what we might become. The game had begun innocently enough, the way most dangerous things do. A casual suggestion thrown out to fill the space that comfortable silence had left behind. Damien had been fidgeting with the label on his beer bottle, peeling it away in careful strips, when he looked up at me with that particular gleam in his eyes that usually meant he was about to suggest something I'd probably regret. "Let's play a game," he said, and I should have known then that whatever he had in mind would lead us somewhere we hadn't planned to go. "Secrets," he explained, settling back against the couch with a grin that didn't quite reach his eyes. "We take turns telling each other something no one else knows. Something real." I laughed at first, told him we weren't teenagers at a sleepover. But there was something in the way he was looking at me, something almost pleading beneath the casual suggestion, that made me reconsider. Maybe it was the lateness of the hour, or the way the lamplight softened all the sharp edges in the room, or maybe it was simply that I'd been carrying too many unspoken things for too long. "All right," I said, though I had no idea what I was agreeing to. He started with something light. The time he cheated on his driving test, bribing his instructor with his grandmother's homemade cookies. I countered with my secret obsession with romance novels, the stack hidden behind serious literature on my bookshelf. We laughed, the tension easing slightly, and I thought maybe this would stay harmless after all. But Damien has never been content with surface-level anything. His next secret cut deeper. The way he sometimes felt like he was performing his own life, playing a role everyone expected him to fill while his real self watched from somewhere hidden and untouchable. The admission surprised me with its rawness, its complete departure from the confident facade he usually wore. I found myself matching his honesty without meaning to, telling him about the nights I lay awake wondering if I was living my life or just going through the motions. About the fear that I'd become so good at being what other people needed that I'd forgotten what I actually wanted for myself. With each exchange, the atmosphere in the room grew heavier, more charged. We were no longer just sharing secrets. We were excavating ourselves for each other, laying bare the parts we usually kept carefully hidden. The physical space between us seemed to shrink with every confession, as if honesty had its own gravitational pull. When I admitted my fear of being truly known, I felt something shift irreversibly. The words hung in the air like a challenge, and I watched Damien's expression change in response. His casual grin faded entirely, replaced by something more serious, more focused. He leaned forward slightly, his dark eyes searching my face as if he was seeing me clearly for the first time. "You're afraid of being known," he repeated quietly, not quite a question. "But you're the person everyone tells everything to." "There's a difference," I said, though I wasn't sure I could explain what it was. "Between listening to other people's truths and revealing your own. Between being trusted with secrets and being willing to tell them." He nodded slowly, understanding passing between us without need for further explanation. In that moment, I realized he'd been feeling the same thing. That beneath all his easy charm and quick wit, he was just as carefully guarded as I was, just as afraid of what might happen if someone really saw him. The game continued, but everything had changed. We were no longer trading harmless embarrassments, but circling something much more dangerous. Each secret felt like a step closer to an edge we hadn't known we were approaching. I told him about the loneliness that followed me even in crowded rooms, the way I sometimes felt like I was watching my own life through glass. He confessed to lying awake at 3 in the morning, staring at his phone, and wanting to call someone who would understand the weight of all the things he couldn't say. The air between us grew thicker with each admission, charged with recognition and something else I was afraid to name. Our voices dropped to whispers, as if speaking too loudly might break whatever spell we were weaving. The apartment felt smaller, more intimate, like the walls had drawn closer around us. When he shifted position, his knee brushed against mine, and neither of us moved away. When I reached for the bottle between us, our fingers touched briefly, and the contact felt electric, meaningful in a way that made my breath catch. The game was supposed to be about secrets, but what was happening felt more like revelation. Like we were finally acknowledging something that had been building between us for weeks, maybe longer. Something that had nothing to do with friendship and everything to do with the way he looked at me when he thought I wasn't paying attention. I could feel him gathering courage for something, could sense the shift in his energy as he prepared to cross whatever line we'd been dancing around all evening. The silence stretched between us, heavy with anticipation and possibility and fear. When he leaned closer, close enough that I could feel his breath against my neck, I knew the game was over. Whatever came next would be real in a way that couldn't be taken back or laughed off or explained away. "My secret," he whispered, his voice barely audible, his lips almost touching my skin. And then he said the words that changed everything. After those words leave his lips, nothing feels casual anymore. The confession hangs in the air between us like smoke, impossible to clear away or pretend it was never there. "I think about you more than I should." 6 words that have rewritten the entire history of our friendship, casting every shared glance and lingering conversation in a different light. I finally turn to look at him, and the movement feels monumental, like turning the page in a book I can never go back to reading the same way again. His face is closer than I expected, close enough that I can see the uncertainty flickering behind his usual confidence. Close enough that I can count the freckles scattered across his cheekbones. Notice the way his breathing has gone shallow and careful. He doesn't look away when our eyes meet, though I can see the effort it takes him to hold my gaze. There's vulnerability there, raw and unguarded, but also a kind of determination that tells me this wasn't an accident. This wasn't something that slipped out in a moment of weakness. This was deliberate, calculated, a choice he made knowing it would change everything between us. The silence stretches on, but it's different from the comfortable quiet we shared earlier. This silence is electric, charged with possibility and terror in equal measure. Every second that passes feels weighted with significance, like we're balanced on the edge of a cliff, and any movement might send us tumbling into something we can't control. I should say something. I know I should respond, should either laugh it off or acknowledge it or do something to break this tension that's building between us like pressure in a storm. But my throat feels tight, my tongue heavy, and all I can do is stare at him while my heart hammers against my ribs. He shifts slightly, moving even closer, and I can feel the heat radiating from his body. Our knees are touching now, a point of contact that sends electricity shooting up my spine. When did the space between us become so small? When did this careful distance we've always maintained collapse into something that feels inevitable? You weren't expecting that, he says quietly, and it's not quite a question. His voice has taken on a different quality, lower and more intimate than I've ever heard it. Like he's sharing something meant only for my ears. I shake my head, unable to find words that feel adequate to the moment. No, I wasn't expecting it. But as soon as he said it, something inside me recognized the truth of it. The way he's been looking at me lately, the increased frequency of his visits, the careful attention he pays to things I say. All of it suddenly makes sense in a way that feels both shocking and completely obvious. He reaches out, then, slowly, giving me time to pull away if I want to. His fingers touch my hand where it rests on the floor between us, and the contact sends a shock through my entire nervous system. His skin is warm, slightly rough from guitar playing, familiar and foreign at the same time. I've thought about this, he continues, his thumb tracing across my knuckles in a gesture so tender it makes my chest ache. About telling you, about what it would mean if I did. The admission hangs between us, heavy with implication. I can hear the question beneath his words, the request for permission to continue down this path we've stumbled onto. He's asking me to make a choice, to decide whether we're going to pretend this never happened or let it transform us into something entirely new. His thumb continues its gentle movement across my hand, and I realize I'm not pulling away. Should be protecting the friendship we've built, the easy companionship that's become such an important part of my life. But I can't seem to make myself move, can't seem to summon the will to restore the safe distance we've always maintained. Instead, I find myself studying his face in the amber lamplight, seeing him with a clarity that feels almost overwhelming. The way his dark hair falls across his forehead, the slight crook in his nose from where he broke it playing soccer in high school, the curve of his mouth softer now than I've ever seen it. When did I start noticing these things? When did my awareness of him shift from friendly to something hungrier, more focused? Looking back, I can see the signs I've been ignoring. The way my pulse quickens when he walks into a room. The way I've started looking forward to his visits with an intensity that goes beyond simple friendship. The way I catch myself watching him when he's not looking, memorizing details I have no reason to need. You have, haven't you? He says, reading something in my expression that I hadn't realized I was showing. Thought about it. About us. The question hits me like a physical thing, forcing me to confront truths I've been carefully avoiding. Yes, I realize with a shock of recognition. I have thought about it. About him. About what it would feel like to close this distance between us, to stop pretending that what I feel for him fits neatly into the category of friendship. The realization terrifies and exhilarates me in equal measure. This isn't something I planned or wanted or thought I was ready for. But it's here now, undeniable and demanding acknowledgement. His hand tightens slightly around mine, anchor and question both. We're still sitting on the floor of my apartment, surrounded by the detritus of our evening together. But everything feels different now, transformed by honesty into something I don't recognize. The words form in my throat before I'm ready for them, pulled out of me by the weight of his question and the impossible tenderness in the way he's holding my hand. The truth I've been avoiding crystallizes into something I can no longer deny, something that demands to be spoken aloud. You weren't joking, were you? It comes out as a statement rather than a question, because somewhere in the space between his confession and this moment, I've understood that everything about tonight has been leading to this recognition. The game of secrets wasn't random. His increased visits weren't coincidental. The way the air between us has been growing thicker and more charged wasn't my imagination. He doesn't answer with words. Instead, he goes very still, his thumb stopping its gentle movement across my knuckles. His eyes search my face with an intensity that makes me feel exposed and seen in equal measure. There's something almost desperate in his expression, like he's trying to read my reaction before committing to whatever comes next. The silence stretches between us, but this time I don't feel the need to fill it. We're past the point where words feel adequate anyway. Everything important is being communicated in the space between breaths, in a way neither of us is pulling away, in the gradual dissolution of the careful boundaries we've spent months constructing. When he finally moves, it's with the same deliberate slowness he used when reaching for my hand. He shifts closer, close enough that I can feel the warmth of his body all along my side. Close enough that when he breathes, I can smell the faint scent of his cologne mixed with something that's purely him. This time, when he leans in, it's not toward my neck, but toward my mouth. The movement is tentative at first, giving me every opportunity to stop him, to restore the safe distance between friendship and something infinitely more complicated. But I don't move away. Can't move away. Every cell in my body seems to be pulling toward him, drawn by a magnetism I'm no longer trying to resist. His lips brush against mine, soft and questioning. The contact is gentle, almost hesitant, as if he's still not entirely sure this is real. As if he's afraid that too much pressure might make me disappear, might reveal this whole moment to be some elaborate wishful thinking. But I don't disappear. Instead, I find myself kissing him back, my free hand coming up to rest against his chest where I can feel his heart racing beneath my palm. The kiss deepens slightly, becomes more certain, more real. His lips are warmer than I expected, softer, and they move against mine with a careful reverence that makes my chest ache with something I don't have words for. This is my first kiss with another man, though the thought doesn't occur to me until later. In the moment, it doesn't feel like a milestone or a revelation about my identity. It just feels like Damien, like the natural conclusion to something that's been building between us for longer than I want to admit. It feels like coming home to a place I didn't know I'd been looking for. When we finally break apart, the separation feels reluctant, necessary only because we both need to breathe. He doesn't move far, staying close enough that our foreheads almost touch. His eyes are dark and slightly unfocused, pupils dilated in the amber lamplight. His breathing is unsteady, matching my own. The kiss is quiet but certain, a revelation in itself. Not the desperate, passionate collision I've seen in movies, but something more tender, more profound. A question asked and answered, a door opened that can never be fully closed again. The secret is no longer something spoken. It's alive between us now, undeniable and transformative. It exists in the lingering taste of his lips on mine, in the way my hand is still pressed against his chest, in the charged silence that settles around us like a blanket. I can see my own wonder reflected in his expression, the same mixture of disbelief and recognition that I'm feeling. We've crossed a line tonight, stepped out of the safe territory of friendship into something unmapped and uncertain. But looking at him now, seeing the soft vulnerability in his eyes and the way he's holding himself so carefully still, I realize I'm not afraid anymore. Whatever this is, whatever we're becoming, it feels right in a way that surprises me. Natural, despite being completely unexpected. Like this was always where we were headed, even when we didn't know we were moving in this direction. He lifts his free hand to my face, fingers tracing along my jawline with the same gentle reverence he showed when kissing me. His touch is warm and slightly uncertain, like he's still learning the boundaries of this new intimacy we've created. I never thought. He begins, then stops, shaking his head slightly. I hope, maybe, but I never thought you'd. He doesn't finish the sentence, but I understand what he means. The fear that comes with wanting something you're not sure you can have. The risk of losing what you already treasure by asking for more. Neither did I. I tell him honestly, and it's true. I never thought I'd be sitting here with my heart racing and my lips still tingling from his kiss, feeling like I've just discovered something essential about myself that I'd never known was missing. But here we are, transformed by honesty and proximity and the simple courage it took to stop pretending we were something we weren't. When we pull apart, the silence that settles between us carries a different weight than any we've shared before. It's heavy with possibility and consequence, thick with the awareness that we've just stepped across a threshold we can never uncross. The kiss lingers between us like a bridge we've built with our mouths, connecting who we were before this moment to who we might become after it. I can feel the magnitude of the choice pressing down on us both. This is the moment where everything either changes forever or gets carefully tucked away and never mentioned again. Where we either acknowledge what just happened and let it transform us, or we laugh it off and spend the rest of our friendship pretending it was just an accident born of late nights and too much honesty. The apartment feels smaller than ever, the amber light casting long shadows that seem to bend around us. The forgotten beer bottle sits between us like a witness, condensation still beating on its surface despite everything that's shifted in the time since we last touched it. The ordinary details of the room feel surreal now, like props in a play we've stopped performing. Damien's hand is still cupping my face, his thumb tracing small, absent circles along my cheekbone. The touch is gentle but possessive, like he's trying to memorize the texture of my skin beneath his fingertips. Like he's afraid I might disappear if he stops touching me. His eyes are dark and uncertain, searching my face for some sign of what I'm thinking, what I'm feeling, what I'm going to do with this new reality we've created together. I can see the vulnerability there, raw and unguarded. The fear that maybe this was a mistake, that maybe I'm already pulling away, already constructing walls between us. The silence stretches longer, and I watch something shift in his expression. The hopeful uncertainty begins to harden into resignation, the soft openness closing off degree by degree. He's preparing to take it back, I realize, to apologize and laugh it off and pretend this never happened, to protect both of us from the complications this moment might create. I can feel the words forming in his throat, can sense him gathering the courage to break this spell we've woven and restore the safe distance of friendship. Part of me wants to let him. Part of me wants to grab onto that escape route and pretend my heart isn't still racing from the feel of his lips against mine. But a larger part of me, a part I'm just beginning to recognize and trust, rebels against the idea of burying this moment like it never happened. Because it did happen, and it felt right in a way that surprises me with its certainty. When he opens his mouth to speak, to take it back, I see the exact moment he makes the decision. The way his jaw tightens, the way his eyes begin to close, the way his hand starts to pull away from my face. The careful mask sliding back into place to hide the one I saw there just moments before. Don't, I say quickly, the word coming out more forceful than I intended. Don't make me take it back. The phrase stops him completely, freezes him in the act of retreat. His eyes snap open, wide with surprise and something that might be hope. His hand stills against my cheek, fingers splaying slightly as if to anchor himself to this moment. Don't make me take it back. The words hang in the air between us, borrowed from his lips, but carrying my own meaning now. Don't pretend this didn't happen. Don't apologize for wanting me. Don't hide behind friendship when we've just discovered something that goes so much deeper. I can see the impact of my words in the way his whole body seems to exhale, tension leaving his shoulders as if he's been holding his breath for much longer than the few minutes since we kissed. The careful control he was trying to reassemble crumbles, leaving behind something more honest and infinitely more fragile. You don't want me to, he says, and it's barely a question. More like confirmation of something he hardly dares to believe. No, I tell him, and the single word carries more weight than any declaration I've ever made. I don't want you to take it back. I don't want to pretend this didn't happen. I don't want to go back to being just friends when I'm finally understanding that we stopped being just friends somewhere along the way without either of us noticing. The relief that crosses his face is so profound it makes my chest ache. Like he's been carrying the weight of this secret, this want for so long that he'd forgotten what it felt like to breathe without it pressing against his ribs. Instead of words, I reach for his other hand, the one that's not touching my face. My fingers find his and lace through them, holding on with a deliberateness that speaks louder than any verbal confirmation I could offer. The gesture is simple, almost mundane, but it carries the weight of a choice. The choice to stay here in this moment, to let it be real, to see where this new truth between us might lead. His fingers tighten around mine, answering pressure with pressure, certainty with certainty. The choice is made, not in grand declarations or passionate speeches, but in this quiet acceptance of everything between us. This willingness to be vulnerable, to risk the friendship we've built for the possibility of something deeper. The night winds down around us like water, finding its level, settling into something quieter but no less profound than the charged moments that came before. The intensity of revelation and choice gradually gives way to a different kind of intimacy, one built not on the electricity of discovery, but on the deeper satisfaction of acceptance. We shift positions without discussion, moving from the careful distance we maintained during our game of secrets to something more natural, more honest. Damien's back finds the couch, and I settle beside him, close enough that our shoulders touch, close enough that I can feel the steady rhythm of his breathing. His hand remains in mine, our fingers still intertwined, and the simple contact feels like an anchor in a world that's been turned upside down and rearranged in the space of a single evening. The apartment looks exactly the same as it did hours ago, but everything feels transformed. The amber light from the corner lamp still casts the same warm glow across the room, still creates the same long shadows that stretch toward us across the hardwood floor. The forgotten beer bottle still sits where we left it, now warm and ignored. My books are still stacked in their careful piles, my papers still scattered across the coffee table in organized chaos. But the space between these familiar objects feels different now, charged with new possibilities. This room has become the place where we stopped pretending, where we let ourselves acknowledge something that had been building in the silence between words, in the spaces between heartbeats, for longer than either of us had been willing to admit. The game we started hours ago feels like it happened in another lifetime, though I can still taste the echo of those early confessions on my tongue. All those secrets we shared, trading vulnerabilities like currency, building trust through the careful excavation of hidden truths. It seems almost quaint now, that elaborate dance we performed around what we really wanted to say to each other. There are no more secrets left to trade, not the ones that matter. The most important truth has already been spoken, kissed into existence, accepted with the simple gesture of fingers refusing to let go. Everything else feels like detail, like the small print on a contract we've already signed with our hearts. Damien's thumb traces absent patterns across my knuckles, a touch so gentle it might be unconscious. But I don't think it is. I think he's as aware as I am of every point where our bodies connect, every breath we share in this small space we've created between us. There's something almost reverent in the way he touches me, like he's still not entirely sure this is real, still afraid that too much movement might shatter whatever fragile thing we've built together. The silence that settles around us is different from any we've shared before. It's not the comfortable quiet of friendship, nor the charged tension of secrets waiting to be revealed. This is the silence of understanding, of two people who have finally stopped performing and started simply being. It's the kind of quiet that doesn't need to be filled, that can exist as its own form of communication. I find myself thinking about all the evenings that led to this one, all the careful conversations and casual visits that built the foundation for tonight's revelations. The way he would linger at my door when it was time to leave, like he was trying to work up the courage to say something that never quite made it to his lips. The way I would catch myself watching him when he wasn't looking, memorizing details I told myself I had no reason to need. Looking back, I can see the pattern we were weaving without realizing it, the slow dance of two people circling something they wanted but didn't know how to ask for. All those moments of nearness that stopped just short of crossing the line we crossed tonight. But we're here now, on the other side of that line, and the view from here is both terrifying and beautiful. I don't know what tomorrow will bring, don't know how we'll navigate this new territory we've discovered between us. I don't know if this will be the beginning of something lasting or just a beautiful moment we'll carry with us as we continue down separate paths. What I do know is that this feels right in a way I wasn't expecting, in a way that surprises me with its certainty. The weight of his hand in mine, the warmth of his body beside me, the steady rhythm of his breathing that's gradually syncing with my own. All of it feels like pieces of a puzzle I didn't know I was solving, falling into place with a satisfaction that goes deeper than logic or planning. The night is growing late, though neither of us mentions it. The city beyond my windows has settled into the deep quiet of the small hours, when most of the world is asleep and the darkness feels infinite and protective. We exist in our own small bubble of light and warmth, insulated from everything beyond these four walls. Eventually, we'll have to face the morning, have to figure out what this means for our friendship, for our lives, for all the careful structures we've built around ourselves. But not yet. For now, we can simply exist in this space we've created, holding on to each other in the amber glow of the lamp, letting the silence hold us while we adjust to this new version of ourselves. The game of secrets is over. What remains is just us, finally honest, finally seen, finally willing to hold the weight of what we've discovered together.